Well, it's been quite a day in the world of A Christmas Carol. If you've been paying attention on social media, you've seen that the first poster has dropped for a new adaptation of A Christmas Carol that's coming out in November of this year. And then later in the day today, a trailer was released as well. This is unfortunately not the Robert Eggers adaptation of A Christmas Carol, which is coming at some point and will, from what I've heard, at least likely star Willem Dafoe as Scrooge. But that is coming at some point. I am excited about this. This is a different movie. This is called simply Ebenezer because I guess they thought there were too many called Scrooge and too many called A Christmas Carol, so they're calling it Ebenezer. I mean, we have at least one of those as well, but here we are. They're calling it Ebenezer. I've been aware of this for quite a bit, and I've been dreading talking about it. Not necessarily because of the quality of the film, but because of who's starring in the film. I've been really debating how to talk about this. Uh, if it's your first time listening to this podcast, I am doing a complete history of A Christmas Carol in film and TV. Every November and December, I go through a number of years of A Christmas Carol chronologically and take a look at every single adaptation that came out in that time. So, first season I did beginning of the sound era through the 70s. Second season I did 1980 up through the Muppets in 1992. And this coming season I'll be covering everything from the Muppets until about 2001. So, a different time period every season. And now we're getting an announcement that there's a new one coming. And the problem is, how do I deal with that when the star of the film is Johnny Depp? This is going to make some people mad, and frankly, I don't care. I would not support financially a movie with Johnny Depp. I stand with Amber Heard. I believe the accusations against him, and I stand with victims. That's all it is, point blank. So I don't want to see a Johnny Depp comeback, and I would not financially support this film. That said, that's where it gets difficult because this is an attempt to be a completionist project. I want to cover every version of A Christmas Carol. And what do I do with that? Uh, if I were covering an old version of A Christmas Carol and an actor who had passed had been accused of some horrible things, I would talk about it in the episode. I wouldn't ignore that. But I wouldn't use that as a reason to not watch the film, not discuss the film. And that's my own approach to separating art from artist. Everyone's going to have their own, I don't judge how others do it. I think we all have our ways of doing it. We all do it to some extent. A lot of people work on a movie, but this is different because in the present day. I don't know a lot about perhaps the more lesser known actors who played Scrooge. I don't know a lot about their personal lives, but I talked a bit about Bill Murray when we did the episode on Scrooged because that's someone who's been accused of being quite violent on set, and he has also been accused of sexual harassment over the years, including recently on the set of a film that production was shut down for. I don't know that I went into it deeply on my episode on Scrooged, but I know I at least referenced it. When I talked about Scrooge's Rock and Roll Christmas, I talked about Bobby Goldsboro, who had a song in that, and he was accused of some truly vile things by his ex-wife. I never want that to be the focus of this, but I never want someone to tune into this knowing that somebody involved in a project has been accused of that and say, why is Colin not talking about that? He's not giving it the attention it deserves. I never want to come off that way. I want to treat all of this with sensitivity. And that's why I've been really, really dreading how do I talk about this Johnny Depp Ebenezer movie. So, for those curious, this is what I think will be my approach. And if you don't agree, I understand. I'm going to talk about the trailer right here. The trailer was released today. I am going to talk about it. I will not be releasing a review of the film this year. I will not be seeing it in theaters. When I get around to 2026 in my retrospective of A Christmas Carol, I will watch and review the film. I will put it in context. I will be talking about all of the history that led to this attempted comeback by Johnny Depp. Obviously, that's going to be a few years in the future, so we'll have more years of context to go off of then. I will not be reviewing it this year. You're not going to see a 2026 review of this film from me. If others choose to do it, that's their choice. That's not something I'm going to do. But when I do get to it in the retrospective, again, in the name of being a completionist, I'm going to talk about it. It's going to be in context. So if you don't like that, you don't have to listen to that episode. I'm not going to apologize for it. We need to talk about these things in the context they exist in. And Johnny Depp has had many, many horrible accusations of abuse, and he is attempting to mount a comeback based on the goodwill of fans who are still supporting him. I will not be one of those. That said, I have watched the trailer, and I am going to talk about it because this is a podcast about A Christmas Carol. People want to hear me talking about it. People have sent me this today. This came out, so I'm going to talk about the poster, going to talk about the trailer, but just know I'm not going to talk more about this until I get to it in the retrospective when we get to the 2026 era. I'm not going to have more to say about this unless, something really truly bizarre would come out about it, but I'm not dwelling on this beyond this. And also, for those listening, this is not my regular episode for the month. I'm just recording this now because the news came out today and I've been trying to figure out how to deal with it. So, first things first. This film is directed by Ty West, who has made a name for himself on the horror scene in the last years. He most famously directed the X trilogy, which is a series of slasher films. I know at least the second and third are quite well liked. I am a big horror fan. I have not actually seen these. Slashers are not really something I seek out. Don't have any problem with them necessarily in concept. It's just not usually the kind of horror I go for, but I've heard at least the second and third are very good. He did make a film that I've seen called The Sacrament, which is, I won't even say loosely based on Jonestown. It's Jonestown with the names changed, and it knows that. Uh, it's a film I thought could be interesting. I find the Jonestown story fascinating. And it looks like it's going to have some interesting things to say in the first half. And then by the second half, it's just complete exploitation. Not a compliment. I was not a fan. It did star Gene Jones, who I thought was very good in the Jim Jones character role. I forget what they called him in the movie, but not a movie I like too much. Yeah, Ty West, who made a lot of horror movies, which has some people thinking this might lean more into the horror, just like the Robert Eggers film would. Not necessarily the vibe we'll get from the trailer, but we'll get to that. First off, there was the poster released, which I'm sure you have seen. Now, the details about this film have been very sparse. I mean, obviously, it's A Christmas Carol. Johnny Depp is playing Scrooge. Some of the other actors' names had come out as well, but this is the first real media about the film, and it's a poster that is a solid 80% top hat with Johnny Depp's eyes, just has Johnny Depp's name on the top. And then the text is, before he was Scrooge, he was Ebenezer. Sure. That's a first name and a last name. I mean, if he was born into the Scrooge family, he would have been Scrooge before they decided on a first name. So that's quite a tagline. And that has made a lot of people think, myself included, earlier at least, is that it was going to be a prequel of sorts, which would be ridiculous because every version of A Christmas Carol has a portion set in Christmas past. It's kind of the whole deal. So why would you need a prequel about how Ebenezer came to be who he was? We all know how it happened. It's right there in the text. It's right there in pretty much every version, not the 1935 one. It's in almost every version. And they all have the past in some form. So that's a really, really poor tagline. Don't know what they were thinking with that. And then the trailer dropped. Yeah, it's very clear from this trailer that they want to advertise this as a big Johnny Depp comeback project. And he's had a few films in the last couple of years. There was that infamous moment at the Oscars. There was an audience vote for certain things, and a bunch of his fans like spammed the vote with a film they hadn't even seen that he was in. But none of his films have been big comebacks like I'm sure he is hoping for. I'm not doing like a trailer reaction or anything where you'll see me go through it. I'm just doing a quick podcast audio recording so I can talk about this. But we'll talk about what's in the trailer a bit. You can watch it. It was posted by Paramount Pictures today. And there have been fake posts about trailers for this film for a long time. So when I heard it had been posted, I had to check that it was actually the official release, and it was. So the trailer starts with a crow cawing, and then we see feet walking clearly, Scrooge walking on the streets of London, and people backing away in abject terror from him, much like the beginning of the Michael Caine Christmas Carol. The crow is all throughout this trailer. I'm going to guess the crow is meant to be the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, because at one point he's running from it. So I also don't see a cast member associated with the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. Obviously, that's usually a ghost who's played by a stunt person or a lesser-known actor, at least. So it's not going to be a big-name actor, most likely, because they're cloaked the whole time if they're playing it traditionally. But if I had to guess, the crow is the ghost. That would be much like the 1954 Shower of Stars TV version, where we didn't get much of the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. We just got a cawing mynah bird, which directed Scrooge to his grave, and maybe gets a shout out to that. Who knows? But as soon as the trailer begins and he starts walking, we get text on the screen that immediately cues us in that they're going to advertise this, not that it's a Christmas Carol as much as it is a Johnny Depp comeback project. They are really leaning into, you guys like Johnny Depp, don't you? It's not, Charles Dickens' classic work. It's not anything about Scrooge. The first thing we get on screen besides a logo is, he brought us Jack Sparrow. Yeah. After that, we even see a baby crying responding to Scrooge, because, okay. He brought us Jack Sparrow, Edward Scissorhands, and of course that third iconic Johnny Depp character we all remember, the Mad Hatter. Yeah, sure. Not Ed Wood? Not that I wasn't already soured on Johnny Depp, but if you're pulling out the three most iconic Johnny Depp characters and the third one is the Mad Hatter from that completely forgettable Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland, I don't know what to tell you. And they're saying that he's the king of the misfits by playing these characters. When I think of Ebenezer Scrooge, misfit's not really the word that comes to mind. I mean, he removes himself from society, but that's not praised as a good thing. He's not a lovable misfit. So yeah, after that we see him what appears to be a church. He's running in a church from that bird, which is why I tend to think it's the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. Then we get that the Master of Misfits tag, which I don't think I've ever heard Johnny Depp called that. A lot of his characters are kind of goofballs, outsiders, And after that introduction, the tone of the trailer, it's just about an 80-second trailer, but we're about 30 seconds in at this point. The tone of the trailer takes a turn, and it's leaning into the very comedic. I don't know if this is what the tone of the movie is going to be, or if they're just trying to put as many Johnny Depp-isms, and by that I mean Jack Sparrow-isms, in the movie as they can. But frankly, it's embarrassing. He says in a very campy way, it's good to be back. Like, yes, we get it. This is a Johnny Depp return vehicle. After that, we are at what appears to be Fred's party, because Daisy Ridley is raising a glass to Uncle Scrooge. So I've seen reports that Daisy Ridley is playing a character called Emily Cratchit, which I would assume would be Cratchit's wife. She doesn't have a name in the book. She was Emily in the Muppet version of all things. But the Daisy Ridley character is raising a toast to Uncle Scrooge, and she's clearly at Fred's party. So I think the reporting on this is wrong, and she is playing Fred's wife. But Sam Claflin has been announced as playing Fred. But again, I'm not sure all these announcements are correct. So, I mean, unless in this version, I'm reaching here on what is probably just an error. But Bob Cratchit has an adult daughter who's married to Fred. I don't think that's what's happening here. Or a sister, or, whatever. Just to tie the family bonds even closer. A sister would be more likely in this context. But based on what I'm reading, she's playing Emily Cratchit, which that can't be right. But Sam Claflin is playing Fred. So I would imagine that's correct. That's who it looks like he's playing. So I'm imagining with Daisy Ridley being in this, they're going to be expanding that part a bit because it's a fairly small part and she's a pretty prominent actress. But we see in this scene just how embarrassing this is. I'm not saying you can't do a comedy version of A Christmas Carol. I've talked about them. I will talk about more. There are some that are funny. But we see them raising a toast, and then we have Johnny Depp sticking his tongue out and blowing a raspberry. Like, juvenile stuff. And they're clearly just making Johnny Depp do all the Johnny Deppisms. I don't know what I hope. It's entirely possible they're just doing this to get all the Depp fans into the theater, and then all the silly stuff was just recorded for trailer footage. I I don't know. Then it looks like we have the Ghost of Christmas Past and what appears to be Scrooge's school. Very quick shot. I'm seeing that Andrea Riceborough is playing the Ghost of Christmas Past. Big fan of hers. Talked about her on my episode of my favorite movies of the 21st century so far because she came up more than once. She's in The Death of Stalin and then she's in Birdman. So yeah, I could see her playing Ghost of Christmas Past that's very much like Angela Pleasance in A Christmas Carol 1984. That would make a lot of sense. That might be what they're going for. I could see a resemblance. Then we get some very strange text on the screen saying, the name you know, the story you don't. That makes me think there's going to be some weird twist in the material here because everyone knows A Christmas Carol. I'm really confused by what they're trying to promote with this, so. It doesn't appear from this trailer that it's any kind of prequel, and I mean, Johnny Depp is in his 60s. Like, he's older than a lot of the actors who played old Scrooge. He would not be playing, yeah, he might be, but he should not be playing anything. He should not be playing a younger version of Scrooge only. That wouldn't make any sense. Because he's 62, 63. That'd be ridiculous. George C. Scott was in his 50s. Alistair Sim was 50. Like, these are the iconic Scrooges, and they were younger. They may have looked older, but they were younger. We also get brief glimpses of Rupert Grint, who is apparently playing Bob Cratchit. That makes sense. Kind of leaning into the thing they've been doing in recent years, where Bob Cratchit is a younger man. I haven't obviously talked about this yet because I haven't gotten to the recent years, but I'm thinking mostly of the 2019 version where Joe Alwyn was maybe 30 and Rupert Grint's not much older than that. And they'll have an older Scrooge, maybe not like senior citizen, but still older, and then like a 30-year-old Bob Cratchit, which that makes sense, I guess. Probably not going to have a 16-year-old daughter like in the book. Not impossible, but it's not usually how he's portrayed, but I don't have a problem with that. It's been done before. It's in the 1970 film when David Collings played him, who was 32 or so. It happened in the Michael Jordan one too, but that actor was not playing younger. He just looked about 45 despite being 32. So it's been done. And I think Rupert Grint's fine casting. Ian McKellen also we get a brief glimpse of as Jacob Marley. Makes perfect sense. A lot of people have said, why isn't he playing Scrooge? And yeah, that's a fair question. And then it gets even dumber. We get a brief glimpse of Scrooge falling into his grave. If you're surprised this film is doing that stupid bit, I don't know what to tell you. But as if that's not enough, we then get a clip of Scrooge being sucked into his bed. Yeah, if you're not familiar, one of Johnny Depp's earliest roles was Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, and he got sucked into the bed in his death scene in that. So, yeah. In a Christmas Carol trailer, we're referencing a Nightmare on Elm Street. Just in a, you get this kind of way. I like the Nightmare on Elm Street series. That's not a knock against that. It's just, why are we doing that? Why are we referencing that in a trailer for a Christmas Carol? Again, it just shows that this movie is mostly just Johnny Depp comeback vehicle and nothing else really. There's also someone on the street who tries to wish Ebenezer a Merry Christmas, and it's this comedic sequence of threes where he gives three humbugs to the man. Really seems like he's going for a Jim Carrey thing, which is weird because Jim Carrey doesn't do that in the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol. It's just so silly. What are they thinking? Again, I think I know what they're thinking. But this feels like a parody instead of a trailer for a movie. I mean, if it's a comedy, maybe it's a comedy. I don't know. I worry it's not going to be a comedy and it's just going to be a Jack Sparrow shtick fest doing bits, but isn't a comedy like any of the Pirates sequels or Johnny Depp's Willy Wonka or the worst ones after that. It ends with Ebenezer Scrooge throwing a snowball at a young couple and laughing. Yeah, that's in line with the book. That's what he did. Sure, he loves to go out of his way to interact with people. That really shows a great read on the character there. We do get that crow again at the end, which I'm convinced this is going to be the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. That makes sense. And it tells us it's going to be in theaters November 13, which is odd because it said Thanksgiving. I don't know. That's not when Thanksgiving is, but maybe it's a limited release and then a full release by Thanksgiving. I don't know. So that is the trailer for the Johnny Depp film Ebenezer, directed by Ty West. I've seen some other casting announcements as well. I'm not sure how accurate these are because I don't think Daisy Ridley is playing a Cratchit, so I'm not sure I trust a lot of these. But I've seen that Tremel Tillman will play the Ghost of Christmas Present, which he's a fine actor. That makes sense. I see that there are some other actors in here who I'm not as familiar with. Although I do see Matt Brewer as Scrooge's father, so I guess he's going to be a character in this one. So yeah, that's the trailer. If it interests you, you can seek it out. It's clear that they're leaning into all the Johnny Depp that they can and paying some attention to the Christmas Carol aspects, I guess, but in very weird, cliched ways. Like, you don't know this story. It's like, yeah, we do. Like AI generated prompts for taglines and trailer talk. I don't know. It really looks embarrassing. I would say, usually, I hope I'm wrong. In this case, I don't have feelings about it because I don't want to see Johnny Depp making movies. Like I said, when it comes around, I will review it as part of the retrospective because I'm a completionist, but I'm not going to be watching it now. So yeah, you can leave comments if you like. Talk about how ridiculous you think this looks, or if I'm being too hard on the actual trailer, you could talk about that as well. I won't accept comments defending abusers, so those will be deleted. But if you want to talk about the actual trailer or the poster or anything else, yeah, you can talk about that absolutely. And this coming Wednesday, I'm still going to be releasing this month's episode where I talk about some more Christmas Carol hot takes. Uh, may turn out that this episode has more hot takes in some people's minds than my actual hot takes episode, but that's neither here nor there. That's going to come out on Wednesday. On that episode, I realized in the recording process I was getting a little more and more unhinged as I went on reading the Rich Little's Christmas Carol reviews. I'm not going to re-record it. At once or twice, there's a little audio mix-up where I like bumped the microphone because I was probably laughing too hard. It wouldn't feel natural to re-record that, so there's going to be one or two of those in there. But that's later this month. If you're listening on Patreon, $5 a month or more, there's a Scrooge TV episode coming this month, and every month where I talk about episodes of TV based on A Christmas Carol. So listen out for that. Donate if you can. And as always, thank you for listening to Scrooge, A Christmas Carol podcast.